Look, I bought Harlem, I own Harlem, I ran Harlem. What they were doing to get high, why they were getting it, and how cheap it was, and that kind of thing. And decided I'd try it out.
Our first drug lord is Frank Lucas. He was a prominent figure in the drug business in Harlem, New York City, from about 1960 to 1970.
Look, I bought Harlem, I own Harlem, I ran Harlem.
He did things differently by sourcing drugs directly from Asia. It was reported that he even used coffins of dead American soldiers to smuggle drugs. However, his friend from Asia claimed that it wasn't true. Lucas grew up in LaGrange, North Carolina, near Goldsboro. He witnessed his cousin's murder by the Ku Klux Klan when he was 12, which raised his criminal mindset. After some minor crimes, he got into a fight with his boss, stole money, and set the place on fire. His mom told him to leave town to avoid trouble, so he went to New York City. There, he started doing more small crimes and playing pool for money. Eventually, he got involved with Bumpy Johnson, a famous gangster. Bumpy Johnson was an American crime boss in the Harlem neighborhood of New York City. There were doubts about Lucas's connection to Bumpy Johnson. Lucas said he worked as Johnson's driver for 15 years, but Johnson was only out of prison for 5 years before he died in 1968. Johnson's widow said many of the stories Lucas told belonged to another guy named Zach Walker, who lived with Johnson and later betrayed him. Furthermore, Lucas claimed to make $1 million every day by selling drugs on 116th Street. It turned out to be an exaggeration. Sterling Johnson, a federal judge and the special narcotics prosecutor for New York City during Lucas's crimes, described Lucas's operation as one of the most extreme international drug smuggling gangs ever seen. Lucas's only trusted people he knew well from North Carolina and his relatives to handle his heroin operations because he believed they were less likely to steal from him or get involved in trouble in the big city. He claimed that his heroin, known as Blue Magic, was highly pure, around 98 to 100% when it arrived from Thailand.
I heard about these veterans over there in Vietnam getting high all the time. What they were doing to get high, why they were getting it, and how cheap it was, and that kind of thing. And decided I'd try it out.
Lucas boasted about his wealth, estimating it to be around $52 million, most of which was stored in banks in the Cayman Islands. He claimed to have approximately 1,000 kilograms of heroin on hand, with each kilogram potentially earning him at least $300,000 in profit.
But he also had the NYPD, an incredibly corrupt organization in the early 1970s, protecting him.
With such high profits, Lucas invested in properties nationwide, including office buildings in Detroit and apartments in Los Angeles and Miami. New York Police Department detectives from the Organized Crime Control Bureau raided Frank Lucas's Teaneck, New Jersey residence. During the search, authorities discovered $584,683 in cash. Subsequently, Lucas was convicted of federal and New Jersey state drug violations. Following an extensive investigation, Lucas was sentenced to 70 years in prison. Concerned for his safety, Lucas and his family were placed in the Witness Protection Program. In 1984, he was again caught and convicted of trying to exchange 1 ounce of heroin and $13,000 for 1 kilogram of cocaine. He received a sentence of 7 years and was released from prison in 1991. In 2012, he pleaded guilty to attempting to cash a $17,000 federal disability benefit check twice. Due to his advanced age and poor health, which included his restriction to a wheelchair, prosecutors agreed to a sentence of 5 years probation. Our second case is about one of the notorious drug lords in the underworld, Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. He was a Colombian drug lord known for his role as the founder and leader of the notorious Medellin cartel, a powerful and highly organized Colombian drug cartel and terrorist organization.
The Medellin cartel were the cocaine trade in the 1980s.
Revered as the king of cocaine, Escobar rose to become one of the wealthiest criminals in history, with an estimated net worth of $30 billion at the time of his demise.
And when you get too close to the sun, your dreams may melt away.
His drug empire held a monopoly over the cocaine trade in the United States throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, solidifying his status as a significant figure in the global underworld. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born on December 1st, 1949 in Rio Negro, Antioquia Department. He was the third of 7 children and grew up in poverty in the nearby city of Medellin. His father worked as a farmer while his mother was a teacher. Escobar didn't finish high school and dropped out of school along with his cousin. They both faced difficulties in school and were seen as troublemakers by teachers because of their tough upbringing in Medellin. However, Escobar didn't completely give up on education. He created fake high school diplomas to make himself look like a graduate. After that, he tried to study in college, dreaming of becoming a criminal lawyer, a politician, and even a president someday. Unfortunately, he had to stop pursuing his dreams because he didn't have enough money. Escobar's criminal journey began with his gang stealing tombstones, erasing the inscriptions and selling them again. When he left school, he started joining gangs to steal cars. He quickly got involved in violent activities, hiring criminals to abduct people who owed him money and demanding ransom. He destroyed the ransom notes even after receiving the money.
If you want to make money, you got to bring us good clients.
And that's not it. Escobar went way beyond in his notorious games. One of his most famous victims was businessman Diego Echevarria, whom Escobar's gang kidnapped and eventually killed in the summer of 1971. The Echevarria family paid a ransom of $50,000 to Escobar. This kidnapping made his gang notorious in the area. Escobar's activities expanded when the cocaine trade started spreading in Colombia during the mid-1970s. His sudden rise to power attracted the attention of the Colombian Security Service, leading to his arrest in May 1976 upon returning from drug trafficking in Ecuador. DAS agents found 39 kilograms of cocaine hidden in the spare tire of Escobar's car. Despite his arrest, Escobar managed to manipulate the legal system. He replaced the first judge handling his case and bribed the second one to release him with other prisoners. The following year, the agent responsible for Escobar's arrest was murdered. Escobar continued to bribe and intimidate Colombian law enforcement agencies using similar tactics. On December 2nd, 1993, Colombian Special Forces discovered Pablo Escobar in a residential neighborhood of Medellin. During the raid, a confrontation ensued, resulting in a gunfire exchange. Escobar was fatally wounded while attempting to flee from the roof. Sustaining gunshot wounds to the torso and feet, as well as a fatal head injury. And due to this gunfire exchange, he kicked the bucket. Our last case is about Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, a convicted Mexican drug lord and former federal judicial police agent. He played a pivotal role in establishing the Guadalajara cartel during the 1980s. The Guadalajara cartel was a Mexican drug cartel responsible for shipping cocaine and marijuana to the United States. Over that decade, the cartel exerted significant control over drug trafficking operations in Mexico and the corridors along the Mexico-United States border. Miguel Angel was born on a Bella Vista ranch near Culiacan, Sinaloa. After finishing high school and studying business in college, he became a police officer in Mexico. He worked as a bodyguard for Leopoldo Sanchez Solis, the governor of Sinaloa. This political connection helped Miguel Ángel start his drug trafficking group. He began his journey by bribing government officials. In 1980, a special agent named Enrique Quique Camarena was sent to work in Guadalajara. He was an American intelligence officer for the Drug Enforcement Administration. Using information from informants, Camarena found marijuana fields owned by drug cartels. These fields were later raided and destroyed. Camarena started uncovering connections between drug dealers, Mexican police, and high-ranking government officials from the PRI party. Miguel Ángel got worried as it threatened his business across Mexico, so he ordered the kidnapping of Camarena. On February 7, 1985, police officers in Jalisco who were paid by the cartel kidnapped Camarena as he left the U.S. consulate in Guadalajara. His helicopter pilot, Alfredo Zavala Avelar, was also kidnapped. They were taken to a house in Guadalajara where they were tortured and questioned for 30 hours. On February 9th, Camarena was killed. His autopsy showed he was killed by a drill used on his skull. He was given drugs to stay awake during the torture. Camarena's body, along with the pilot's, was found buried on a ranch in the Michoacan state, wrapped in plastic. Miguel Ángel was apprehended in Mexico on April 8, 1989. He faced charges in both Mexico and the United States for various crimes, including the kidnapping and murder of DEA agent Enrique Camarena, as well as involvement in racketeering, drug trafficking, and numerous violent offenses.
Miguel Félix Gallardo es un hombre honesto.
And that's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe to Verdict Vault and stay tuned for more updates.